It is Monday, so we get to say hello to Brad and his 3 brilliant minutes. And we've talked about this before. Sometimes you send out an email telling me what you're going to talk about, and all I came up with was happy hour for hummingbirds.
Good start.
Yeah.
Before we get to the story, though, just a few fun facts about hummingbirds. Throughout the Americas, there are more than 350 different varieties.
Really?
Yep. 15 of which are found here throughout the United States. Occasionally, as many as 9 other varieties, even as far south as Central America, will find their way into portions of the United States. But of course, other than the fact they're beautiful little birds, they have that unique way of flying because they beat those little wings somewhere between 50 and 90 times per second, allowing them to take off like a bullet, but also to just hold in place, which is just amazing.
Yeah.
So let's get to today's story. Do hummingbirds drink alcohol?
That's where I came up.
More often than we think, apparently. So says this study from the University of California, Berkeley. Okay. So here are some talking points. Backyard hummingbird feeders filled with sugar water is a natural experiment in fermentation because yeast settles in, and over time it turns that sugar to alcohol. Okay. And the same is true of nectar-filled flowers because there's yeast and bacteria in the environment that metabolizes that sugar and again produces alcohol. So as hummingbirds are traveling about collecting nectar, they're also getting some alcohol. Okay. So here are the questions. How much alcohol do they consume daily? Are they attracted to alcohol or repelled by it, or is it just simply an inevitable part of their diet? Let's find out.
Okay.
Here's what they found. Hummingbirds will happily sip from sugar water with up to 1% alcohol by volume, finding it just as attractive as plain sugar water. So they clearly know about it and will tolerate it.
Okay.
Here's what's even more interesting. But they only sip half as much when the alcohol concentration is increased to 2%. They're still consuming the same amount, but they're somehow keeping that in check. So they know how much they can have before they fly and drink. Okay. All right. So that's
lessons to be learned from nature once again.
That's right. It's interesting. Sugar water that sits in a feeder for up to 2 weeks has a much lower alcohol concentration, only about 0.05% by volume. Okay. But the researchers point out that daily a hummingbird will consume 80% of its body weight. So proportionally, it's still a substantial amount of alcohol that they are consuming. But they say they metabolize it so quickly that they do not get drunk. Okay?
So if they're flying backwards, it's on purpose.
Right.
Gotcha.
This is, by the way, is part of a larger body of researchers that the University of California is doing, and because they're really looking at what role does alcohol play in animal diets, because especially in the tropics where it's very hot, fruits and sugary nectar ferment very quickly. Right. So alcohol cannot help but being consumed by fruit eating or nectar sipping animals, birds, and insects. And they also point out that this is probably part of the reason why even humans, our bodies understand alcohol, can metabolize it, but it also raises the question, why do humans abuse alcohol, whereas in the animal kingdom, the bird kingdom,
they regulate themselves?
Correct.
Interesting.
It is.
There's the kicker.
Yep.
Brad, thank you so much. We'll see you again tomorrow. Still the